Hi, welcome back to Her Sideline of the Story, a podcast for women in sports media. I'm your host, Kindell Buchanan, and I'm so excited that you've come back. I hope you listened to my very first episode. I'm pretty new at this, so thanks for sticking around, and promise I'll get better as I go. I have some really exciting stuff to share with you coming up. Today is going to be my Super Bowl recap episode. I've got some fun stories for you. So if you are new to the show and did not listen to my first episode, first, go back and listen to the first episode. I am a sports photographer. I do editorial work and I shoot for multiple photo agencies. And I have been in the business for about 10 years now. And I just now finally had my first experience photographing the Super Bowl this year. Super Bowl LIX, Super Bowl 59. It was a dream come true. It was also really overwhelming. I was there by myself representing the agency that I work with or contribute to. I'm a contributing photography for Alamy Live News, and they asked me to shoot this big game, and I just kind of said, wait, really? Absolutely, I would love to. I still can't believe it happened. It was a crazy experience. You can see my hat here. I bought way too many souvenirs. You can see a few of them in the background here. But I have had some people asking about me doing like a recap, and I have kind of a lot to share because I was there for a week. So like brief timeline, actually, I can start with that. So game on February 9th, Sunday, February 9th, and I arrived in New Orleans the week before. I have a friends that live in New Orleans, and they were gracious enough to allow me to stay with them and be all up in their business for a whole week. Bless their sweet little hearts. They were amazing hosts, and I'm just super grateful because I don't know that I would have been able to have this experience otherwise, because being there for that long would have been really expensive. The hotels, I would have probably had to stay like 30 or 45 minutes out of town to just be able to afford a hotel for that long. They are amazing, and I'm so grateful for them. And we had some fun hanging out whenever I actually had a little bit of extra time after it was over. So yes, blessed to have a place to stay while I was there. And so I arrived the Sunday before. The reason that I got there so early was because I learned that we were going to be allowed to photograph the airport arrivals. And I just was like, okay, I'm going to be getting there so early. Like, is that worth it? And I just, thought about it. I was like, yeah, it's worth it. I definitely want to do the airport arrivals. So I got up so early. I don't even remember what time. Like, I think I had everything ready Saturday night. I put everything in the car that I could and had, packed up everything to have it ready to just basically wake up and leave. No makeup, didn't even put contacts in. I was wearing my glasses. I just was like, I've just got to get on the road because I believe the airport arrivals had to be there by noon or 1, and it's a 7-hour drive from where I live. So that if that tells you, how early I had to get up. Because I also had to go pick up my credential at the convention center beforehand. We had to have our credentials physically in our hands to be able to access the airport arrivals, because I thought they closed the airport for this, because I did not realize that there are 2 parts of the New Orleans airport, MSY, Louis Armstrong International Airport. Is that what it's called? I think. So they have the new airport and then they have the old airport. And apparently they use the old airport. They're just across from each other. Like they share a tarmac, a runway. So you can see a lot of the photos that I took have the new airport in the background, which actually looks really cool. And we were at the old airport, but I didn't realize there was a difference because I have been to the New Orleans airport, but not enough to like really understand the difference. And so I got there and I was on time. I was even a little bit early. So I was like, yes, I did it. I'm so tired, but I did it. So I walk in, and show them my credential. And I was like, oh, wow, they closed off like this whole part. Like they must have closed off this entire terminal for this. And then it was a ghost town. There was nobody in there. None of the shops were open. And I just was like, this is kind of eerie. Like, this is weird. And anyway, I was texting my friend who I was staying with, and she was like, no, you're in the old airport. I was like, okay, that makes so much more sense because, of course, it was a big deal. But I don't think they would have shut down the entire airport because there was nobody there except for, media who had been approved to come and shoot this event. And anyway, it was really cool. They had balloons set up and they had it all decorated just for us. Like the players weren't coming inside the airport. They had it all set up for us, which was really cool. Just an awesome experience. They had some snacks for us and the voodoo chips. If you have not had the voodoo, what is the Zappos? Zappos, the voodoo flavor potato chips. Oh my gosh, so good. Anyway, they had like a pile of those. I'm just going to give you guys all the details because it makes it a lot more exciting, I think. Because New Orleans is, if you haven't been to New Orleans, I highly recommend it. It is such a unique city. That was my third time being there, I believe, but it's definitely the time that I've spent the longest there. And the city is incredible. Like, it is just so cool. So it really was a great experience to just spend that much time there. They just did a fantastic job of including the city's culture and including all kinds of local artists and local restaurants and shops. Like, they really did an amazing job of just really showcasing the city and the culture of New Orleans. And I think that is one of the things that made this experience so special for me and so many other people. I mean, the media party, holy moly. I have no idea how much money they spent on that, but they wined and dined us for sure. Like, it was very cool. That was on Tuesday, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So pause on the media party. I will get there. So airport arrivals. From a photography standpoint, I was a little disappointed in myself because I didn't really understand what it was going to be like or what was going to happen. So in my mind, with the airport arrivals, I was like, oh, they're going to come off the plane, they're going to walk right past us, and they're going to go in the airport, and then they're going to leave and go to their hotels or wherever they were going. That was, in my mind, how it was going to go. So I left my telephoto lens in the car. Should have brought it with me, just in case. I'm always prepared, but there were a few things on this trip that I messed up on. I learned for the future. I should have brought in my telephoto lens anyway. I should have brought in my laptop because I didn't realize they were going to have places for us to set up and edit and transmit. Like, I didn't know. So anyway, they in fact did not come close to us at all. I did at least have my 70-200 lens. This is info for all the photographers out there. I had a 24-70 and a 70-200, and I left my 400 in the car because I was like, they're going to be walking right next to us. I'm not going to need this. I don't need this right now. So I didn't bring it inside. I should have, just in case, but I did not. So I realized once the plane arrived and they parked the plane on the tarmac and they pulled out the charter buses and parked them, next to the airplanes, I was like, oh crap, they're not coming over here. They're going to come off the plane and they're going to walk right over to the charter buses that are equally far away from us. So I did not get any close-up shots, but I did get some cool, wider shots, and I got some good shots for the equipment that I had with me. If I'd had my 400, I definitely would have been able to get some more close. Even with the 400, they wouldn't have been those like really nice, tight close-up shots, we were just that far away, which makes sense because the planes are, loud and can be dangerous. I edited my photos at night, turned them in, and went to my friend's house, got all settled. And Monday was very busy. I got up early. I went to the convention center. The convention center had the media row, radio row, whatever it is being called these days. Traditionally, it's been Radio Row, but I think now they call it Media Row. So it was this huge part of the convention center where all of the radio personalities and the TV broadcast companies, such, all of the big names that you can think of, ESPN, NBC, Fox, the Pat McAfee show set up their stuff there. Everyone who was anyone in sports media had a table there. It was crazy. I didn't take photos and videos in there other than a few of the sets. Like FanDuel had they were streaming a TV show. They interviewed Drew Brees and Reggie Bush, which I was at, and I was fangirling and on the inside so hard because I love Drew Brees so much, and I was just like taking photos and just like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. And then Pat McAfee show, I took a couple of photos at his show. My husband and I are a huge fan of him, and that was also really wild to see in person. They had just their set just right there. We were 15 feet away from them. It was crazy. There was a giant photo workroom as well, which I worked in a few times. And what else? I should have made some notes. So yeah, Monday morning, I went to the convention center, checked out the Media Row situation, and there was also a welcoming press conference, like a welcome press conference put on by the city. The mayor of New Orleans was there and spoke for a moment. The owner of the Saints, Gail Benson, was there. I am a huge Saints fan, so to see her there and listen to her speak and take photos of her at the press conference was great. So I really do need to share more of my photos from this week. I took so many photos during the week. It was a lot. It was a lot for one person to handle, covering so many different events and, shooting them myself, captioning myself, editing myself, uploading myself on every time a very tight deadline. Like I was on a 24-hour deadline of everything that I shot, but you have to get stuff posted as soon as you possibly can. Otherwise, a lot of the times it just becomes irrelevant because there's so many other photographers there. You want to be one of the first to get your photos posted and available for purchase. That's just a numbers game. Like you just want to be fast so that someone can pick up your photo and put it on their website or put it in their newspaper. It's a very, very fast-paced environment. And to do all of that alone is hard. I'm also not very fast. I am always learning and growing, and I have been growing in leaps and bounds as far as how quickly I'm able to shoot, edit, caption, upload. Every time I get better every time. So yeah, I did the press conference that Monday morning, and that afternoon, after I finished editing and turning in all of the press conference photos, I went to go find lunch, and I decided to just go walk around the French Quarter. The French Quarter is about maybe a mile and a half walk from the convention center, and I was running on adrenaline and had my huge think tank backpack with me that I should have probably gotten an 18 liter and not a 20. It's either 24 or 26 liter, the size of my backpack, it holds a lot, which is great, but it's really heavy when it's full. So I'm just like waltzing around, hauling my super heavy backpack with my laptop, my 2 camera bodies, since I had missed out on having my big lens for the airport arrivals. I think I put it in my backpack that day because I wasn't sure if I needed it. So I was like, well, I got to go in through security. I don't want to have to come back out and walk to my car to the parking garage to grab this. So I had it with me, and it just made it that much heavier. So I'm all walking from the convention center to the French Quarter with this huge heavy backpack full of camera gear and just having the best time. Then after that, I went straight to the opening night Opening night was wild, you guys. Oh my gosh. So, to give you a little bit of an explanation of what opening night was, so they had this event at the Superdome on Monday night, and it was basically a kickoff to week, and it was like a media day, but it was open to the public. I mean, you had to buy a ticket, but you know, tickets were only like $20. And so fans could come and be a part of this experience. And they had, on the field, they did 2 separate sets. So they had a set for the Eagles and they had a set for Chiefs. And I don't remember who was first, honestly. I think it might have been the Eagles that were first. It doesn't matter. So on the field of the Superdome, they had, I believe it was maybe 10 different booths or kiosks or little stages, whatever you want to call them. 5 on one side, 5 on the other side, like sidelines to give you a visual. You know, there's on one sideline and then on another sideline. And they had select players. They had some of the top players and then some extra players. And they were basically being interviewed by the media, but in front of public fans who have bought tickets. So they had a camera, a broadcast camera at each station, stage, whatever, and they were putting it up on the Jumbotron of the Superdome so the fans could see and hear some of the interviews, and they did like this whole broadcast thing. That wasn't the crazy part. The crazy part was down on the field where we were as members of the media. So we were allowed to be at whichever station, stage, whatever that we wanted to be at and kind of rotate. And journalists were asking questions. So they would be, you know, up at the front of the stage and they'd be, you know, right in front of Travis Kelce, and they would ask a question. And then everyone else who had their phones up or their camera, we were taking photos, videos. We were shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. Some people got a little mean. It was crazy. Like, it was very cutthroat. I'm sometimes used to that because I shoot red carpets as well. And sometimes red carpets can get a little pushy, and you got to fight for your voice to be heard, and you have to fight for your camera to be in a good spot to get a good angle. Like, everyone is there to get the shot, and not everyone is nice about it. So you kind of just have to, you know, do you and be assertive, but not necessarily aggressive. But you got to do what you got to do to get the shot. And so I was just I'm short also. So I was just like trying to find little nooks and crannies. I was using my 70-200 lens most of the time because then I was able to actually shoot between like people's heads and elbows. Like, I'm just telling you, it was wild and it was hard. It was very hard to get a good shot. And a lot of people were holding their cameras above their heads to get, you know, that above angle to shoot down, which makes it even harder for me because then I can't see even more. And I don't have that kind of camera. I don't have a swivel screen. Someday I'll get one. But the DSLRs that I use right now, I can't really hold my camera up to take a shot because I can't see what I'm shooting, and my focus generally won't be on point unless it just doesn't work. At instances where I did try that, and 9 times out of 10 I missed a shot or focus, but there were a few that the focus hit and I was like, yes, I got it. So it's worth it to just try. You know, you just got to do whatever you can do. On Tuesday morning, well, first of all, I stayed up really late editing those photos. I edited some on site and turned some in, and then I went back to where I was staying, edited some more, uploaded some more, went to bed pretty late, woke up the next morning, and edited some more. I took a lot of photos at opening night, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hardcore put, you know, I'm gonna edit as many of these as I can and get them turned in, you know, but tomorrow morning at the latest. So I spent most of Tuesday morning finishing up those edits, and then the media party was Tuesday night. So then I just got ready for the media party. I didn't go shoot anything on Tuesday. There was some stuff going on. It's just, you can't be everywhere at once, you know? So I was like, it's fine. I'm going to get as many of these edited as I can, turn those in, get ready for the media party, go hard again on Wednesday of covering things. So media party was insanely awesome. They had it at Mardi Gras World, which from my understanding is kind of like a museum for Mardi Gras floats. It's hard for me to say exactly what it was because they specially fixed it up for us for the party. So they had tons of different stages set up and there's different Mardi Gras floats and food, not stations, but kind of like the coolest thing they did, like instead of having like a buffet or like a catering type situation, they brought in a lot of local New Orleans restaurants and caterers. I was really tired the next morning and I guess I kind of got sick. So I did not do anything on Wednesday. I just kind of rested and hung out at the house with my friend. And then one of my favorite parts was the Fox Media Day. That was, I'm going to say this about everything, like that was one of my favorite parts. Fox Media Day was awesome. So what they did was they just had, this, I think it was maybe like an hour-long event where they had a large room and they had different stages for each Fox Media sports personality. They had some New Orleans food catering for us for lunch, and they did like an intro on the stage with everyone. I could not name all of them. I'm so sorry. I knew who they all were, but off the top of my head, I cannot repeat all of those names back to you of who is part of the Fox Media Day. But highlight, I love Carissa Thompson. I think she is incredible. She is a role model for me. Her and Erin Andrews both have just been incredible trailblazers for women in sports media. I listened to their podcast, their Calm Down with Carissa and Erin, or with Erin and Carissa. I can't remember whose name goes first on the thing there. But yeah, I admire them both tremendously. So to get to see Carissa in person and take her photos during media day and then just like listen to the questions that were asked and her responses. So sorry, to backtrack a little bit, basically what it was just like opening night with the players, but it was with Fox Sports Media analysts or Fox Sports Media personalities. So they had a little stage for each one with their names on it. And I mean, we were close. Like it was very close proximity. Like I was 3 feet away from Julian Edelman taking his photo. And I was just like, what is going on? So there was people standing around them just sitting in this chair, and journalists could ask questions and record their audio or record video. Or in my case, just taking still shots. So I was just taking photos of each of them while they were being interviewed. So I spent the afternoon editing all of those photos, and then I met up with my friend for dinner and drinks, and we had a great time. What did I do on Friday? I'm trying to remember what I did on Friday. How could I forget? Okay, Friday was my other favorite thing. So the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, if you do not know what that is, Google it, look it up. It, in a nutshell, is an award that is given in memory of Walter Payton, absolute legend, but he was known even more for his philanthropy and just an incredible person, gave back so much to his community, and his family now runs this foundation that sponsors the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, and that is like a very prestigious award given every year at the NFL Honors. So nominees got to participate and be a part of the Walter Payton Man of the Year Community Day. Basically, they held like a flag football clinic for New Orleans youth. I believe it was like a collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club. And I got to attend that and take photos, and it was so fun and just an absolute honor to just be there, because I love seeing stuff like that. Like it was just, their faces were lit up. Like they were just having fun playing football with kids. Jared Goff was there. I got to see him, throw and interact with the kids. I think Jared was the only quarterback. I may be wrong about that. He's the one I remember the most of seeing. That there were some that were inside and some that were outside, and I was outside with them. Oh, Tyrann Mathieu was there. Honey Badger. I am a fan of him. I was a fan of him with the Chiefs. I am a fan of him with the Saints. Cam Jordan with the Saints was there. Took some photos of the kids playing football. It was one of my favorite things. Kindell was there, so that was a little crazy to see him in person. I was like, it's the commish. So I took his photo because he had a little bit of a speech at the beginning of the event. So I edited those photos that afternoon, and I spent the rest of the afternoon shopping, as you can see here. Actually, I got this on Monday. Everything was half off on Monday at the shop after. So I did shop on Friday and got some things that I was like, these are non-negotiables. I have to get this. But then I'll come back on Monday and get other things that are half off. So I got this hat, was my second hat. I have, here, I'm just going to show off my stuff because I spent a lot of money on it. They have really expensive stuff. But I knew that I was gonna splurge, come on. I may or may not ever get to go back again. I'm gonna speak it into the universe that I am gonna get to go back. But just in case, I bought a lot of stuff. So this is the first hat that I bought. It's already dirty, goodness gracious. It was very overwhelming in that shop. It was huge. There were so many things. You couldn't try anything on. So it was really hard to figure out what size. And I bought a sweatshirt that is in the other room, so I'm not going to show you that. I bought a mini helmet. I'm sorry for everyone who is only listening to this audio and you are not watching the video, because you are not seeing what I am showing you and you're probably confused. I am showing off some of the souvenirs that I bought while I was there. Actually, I spent a conservative amount of money, probably to most people. Lots of people probably spent thousands of dollars. I did not spend that much. My favorite thing, which is going to be going in a clear case soon, I need to order it, is my football. And actually, I bought this on Monday. It was almost a non-negotiable, but I bought the helmet instead. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about this football. I wasn't going to buy it because I already have this football. They're both small. They're both like the junior size, but my husband bought me that for Christmas just to have. But I was like, well, I don't need another one. And I was like, actually, I do. I do need another one. I do need a special branded football. Is that backwards or upside down? Well, now it's just upside down. Anyway, I love my football. It's going in a case. It's my favorite thing. I took a photo of myself like sleeping with it, and it's hilarious. Okay, so we're putting that back. So even though I was not allowed to be on the field, my credential was for upper photo only, and that is normal. There were already a lot of people on the field, but there were also a lot of us that were in the upper section shooting down. If I had to guess, there was probably around 50 at least. I might be bad with numbers, but like even just in my immediate vicinity, there was 10 or 15 other photographers, and we were all in the 50-yard line shooting down from the very top of the Superdome. That's a whole thing in itself. It was really hard, but I have no complaints because I am so blessed to be there. Of course, I would want to be on the field, but I still got to be there. I still got to take photos. I still had an amazing experience throughout the week with all the events. And, I did actually have to change how I approached shooting. Like I had to change my normal routine and how I even think while I'm shooting, because I am usually on the field. So when I'm photographing, I'm tracking a subject with my camera horizontally. So it's hard to explain why that's different, but it's a different angle, it's a different perspective, and you are tracking a fast moving subject coming towards you or away from you or laterally. But when you are shooting from that high up and shooting way down, still with a telephoto lens, but so you're kind of like tracking like this instead of like this, but they're so far away that you're actually not really moving that much, just because of it's physics, science, whatever. I had to change a lot of my camera settings of like autofocus and tracking, and what I did to kind of push myself outside the box a little bit was, instead of like center point focusing on the subject that was moving, I tried to predict what might happen. And I mean, you're kind of supposed to do this anyway in a normal game. You're supposed to know the game and try to predict what might happen, and try to lock your camera in on a receiver before the ball is even thrown to him, because then you're there, you're locked in, you got the shot. You have to kind of think that way anyway already. But I was looking down at the field, so I was like, okay, I could track my subjects and get mediocre shots at best, because it's just not going to be that interesting. Or I could pre-focus and frame the Super Bowl logo on the field and also the logo on the field. So I did that, and I went for like a symmetry. So I was capturing action, but I was also capturing, like, I focused on the very middle of the 50-yard line, in the very middle of the logo. And I did not move my camera for a while. And I had to wait till they were playing, on the 50-yard line. I wasn't just taking photos of the 50-yard line, although I did do that, but that was pre-game. So I was like, okay, I'm pre-focused here, and I'm going to wait until the players come into the frame with the action, like the action and the players are coming into the frame, and then I will take my shots. So I have one of my favorite shots is of the logo on the 50-yard line, and it's like perfectly centered, it's perfectly symmetrical, perfectly being relative, but for the most part, pretty perfectly centered. And Jalen Hurts he was outside the frame, but he came into the frame and I started shooting. So Jalen Hurts is passing the ball. Several of his receivers are running their play, and it's my favorite, I think, of all of them. Other than my Harrison Butker photo kickoff, I had a choice to either zoom all the way out and take a photo of the entire Superdome as kickoff is happening, which I think is what a lot of people did. And I just was like, I don't think I want to do that. I'm going to use my telephoto. I'm going to zoom in on Harrison, and I'm going to take as close of a shot of him as I can. I took, several frames of this moment, but just from the perspective of where I was standing versus where the ball actually ended up being kicked. Harrison is in, full kicking form. He's kicked the ball. The ball is right between two of the hash marks on the field that mark the yards, like in between the yard lines. So it was like kind of, I planned it, but it was kind of serendipity at the same time of just where it actually ended up being. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, the ball could have been anywhere else. It wasn't just me pressing down the shutter and taking, multiple frames per second of this moment. The ball just happened to go right through those from my perspective of where I was standing, very high up. So that's my other favorite photo. So even though I wasn't on the field, and even though I asked later, after the game was over, if I could go get some confetti on the field, they said no. I just didn't have access. I think I probably could have waited until even later, because I know there were some people that did get to go on the field. But again, I was there by myself. I had to get my photos edited and turned in as quickly as possible. So I didn't really have a lot of time to go back out there a second time because the photo workroom was not close at all to the field. So the photo workroom at the Superdome, their normal one, is probably wonderful. But because there were so many of us for this event, they had to set up a satellite workroom and photo workroom, media workroom in a parking garage connected to the Superdome. So it was not ideal, but I'm sure they did the best they can. A lot of people were upset about it, but I was just like, I'm just here. So whatever. But that being said, it took a long time to get from the photo workroom to anywhere else in the Superdome. So I did not get to go on the field even once, but because there was so much confetti everywhere, it was like on people that were on the field and they were walking, off the field, and the confetti was just falling off of them. So there's confetti everywhere in the hallways. And I was just like, thank goodness. Because I have confetti from Women's Final Four last year. I have confetti from MLS Cup. It's just a thing that I do. And it's just a thing that that people in sports media do. It's probably more important to some than others. But I was like, I have got to get some confetti from the Super Bowl. So I did. I ended up getting quite a bit. I'm sure I could have stayed and collected some more, but it was, a matter of just time. And I was like, okay, enough is enough. The game, I haven't even gotten to the game part yet. When I got there, before I went inside, I did go through security and stuff. I walked around the Superdome with my camera, my 24-70 lens, and just took some photos of fans arriving because we'd had some customers that requested it, and it was just cool anyway. So I got some photos of the Superdome, the signage, and fans, and that ended up being a really good thing. So then I went inside and got settled, and I actually went to my spot that I was photographing from like 2 hours before kickoff because I wanted to make sure I had a good spot. I wasn't sure how hard it was going to be to come by because, there were several of us who were, but technically I was upper photo roaming was what my access was. That meant that I could move around within a certain area on that top level. But because I found that spot open on the 50-yard line, I stayed there the whole time almost. I think at the end I moved and took some stuff otherwise, but I was just like, this is probably going to be the best spot I'm going to get. And if I leave it, someone else is going to get it and I'm not going to get it back. So I was afraid to leave. In hindsight, I kind of wish that maybe I had moved around a little bit more, but I just, that 50-yard line spot was just so good to have that vantage point of, equal of both sides. Since I wasn't covering a specific team, I was covering both. So I just was like, this is probably the best spot for me. The halftime show. I guess I can talk about the halftime show. I barely paid attention, to be 100% totally honest with you, because I was just trying to take a good photograph. The lighting was very difficult because we were really high up, shooting down, and it was a very darkly lit set with spotlights, which is difficult to meter for. So I wasn't listening to the music. I wasn't really paying attention to what they were doing other than just with the thought of framing a photo. I was just 100% totally in work mode. I was not in fan mode, even in the slightest, for the halftime show. So I was just, trying to get a good photograph. If it had been a different musician that I know well and love, I probably would have paid more attention to the actual performance. But again, it was difficult to photograph, so I was just fully focused on that. And I got a few decent, okay ones, but again, we were so high up. don't even know what else to say, to be honest. Like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was also more than what I thought it was going to be, if that makes any sense whatsoever. There were things that were out of my control and a little bit disappointing, but there were also things that totally blew my mind, and I was just over the moon to be there, you know? So it's never going to be this perfect fairy tale experience. I mean, maybe it could be, but, you know, like I watched stories of, you know, I follow some ladies on Instagram and some that were there. And even just watching her stories, I was just like, wow, your experience seemed so amazing. 'Cause she works for a team. So I was just like, wow, you know. So my next goal is I'm going to go back and shoot it again someday, because there's power in speaking things out loud. And I have said out loud before in the past that I'm going to photograph a Super Bowl someday. And, you know, say it out loud, speak your goals out loud, speak your dreams out loud, because there's power in words. There's power in words. There's power in prayer. There's power in your mindset. There's power in your hard work. And yes, there are so many outside factors. So many outside factors. Everybody's story is going to be so different, but that's, you know, that's unique to you. So embrace your story, work hard, and have faith in yourself. And yeah, just, I still can't believe that from recording this episode. I'm probably going to cry a little bit every single episode that I ever do, because I just, you know, sometimes I can't believe that I've had these opportunities. So that's my advice as I am, you know, 38 years old and trying to still combat imposter syndrome in my career. So there is my takeaway. Probably going to cut some of this out. But thanks for being here again. Thanks for listening to her sideline of the story.